Kings and queens, welcome back to the second channel. Hope you guys are doing good. We've got a pretty interesting topic to talk about today because something that was said during a recent Dead by Daylight developer livestream has kind of taken over the community, and I think there's actually a lot more to this conversation than just looking at a viral one clip that immediately is descending into behavior is balancing the entire game around streamers.
That made really long shots super viable and very strong. And, you know, I know we've got a couple streamers in the chat right now. So while you're working on the gen, looking at your own chat, you know, yapping away and saying very funny things, well, you would get shot or hit by a pillar that came out of nowhere. So hopefully with this, it's going to help that not happen as much.
So I want to go through the entire thing, explain what's happening with the judgment, why people are upset, where I think behavior went wrong, and also where I think the community needs to be a little bit more constructive, to say the least. Before we get into all of this and that, as you guys know, we're going to be streaming a lot more often. Tomorrow, we're actually having a big stream with my friend Definitely Markson, so make sure you guys are tuning in. Besides that, Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. EST, and then Friday to Sunday, if we do end up streaming on those days, we'll be there about 5 p.m. EST. So there's pretty much always a chance throughout the week to catch me live and come hang out with us. Also, if you are purchasing anything in the Orixel shop, or picking anything up in Dead by Daylight, make sure you guys are using the support a creator code KING. We're doing giveaways every single month around the code, and we're only a few days away from our next one. So make sure you guys are getting involved with that. Best part is you don't even need to buy anything to enter. All you need to do is put code KING into the support a creator section, send me a picture showing me that you've done so over on our Discord, and that's it. You are entered. If you do end up purchasing something, I want to reward you guys as well. So you guys will be getting double entries, 2 entries for supporting me. Just a token of my appreciation for you guys as a nice little incentive for supporting me when buying everything. But enough of that. Let's not waste any more time and get into the nitty gritty of what's actually going on here and what this entire video is about. As most of you guys know, this Tuesday, we're getting a brand new community chapter, Chorus of Sin, bring Aurora into the game alongside with the new killer, the Judgment. This has obviously been a pretty major chapter because the entire idea behind it is that the community is going to create this chapter. We've been involved in tons of different decisions surrounding the chapter. People have been following this creation of the chapter for a very, very long time. And because of that, there's naturally a little bit more attachment to how this killer in this entire chapter turns out. People don't just want the Judgment to release and technically function, they want the killer to actually feel good, feel interesting, and feel like something that the community can be proud of after watching this chapter come together and go through so many different stages and iterations, myself included. Now here's where the controversy kind of came down. During a recent developer livestream over on their Dead by Daylight official Discord, the devs were talking about some things that are going to be changed with the Judgment following the PTB. This is the same stream for yesterday's video and the video you guys will see tomorrow. And one of the changes they discuss involves her power and the way survivors are warned that an attack is coming. Basically, survivors are going to receive an additional visual indicator on their screen, a vignette, that lets them know that they're in danger and they're about to be hit by her divine light. So when that pillar of beam is being positioned and you're potentially about to get hit by it, you're going to have a little bit more information on your screen that tells you something is coming. Now, obviously, this is a massive change. The change itself was obviously already going to start a balanced discussion kind of question, but the reason behind why they made this change is what really exploded everything. One of the examples that they brought up essentially was the idea that if you're a streamer and you might be sitting on a generator looking over at chat trying to entertain your audience, talking to people, maybe not fully paying attention to your game, and then suddenly the Judgment hits you, that wouldn't necessarily feel fair. So that's one of the reasons they gave that the visual indicator was supposedly supposed to come in, and that's why they're making that change. Which, wow. I mean, the second people heard that, the reaction was obviously, wait a second, are we balancing Dead by Daylight around streamers looking away from their monitors? And that clip started to go around very quickly. Polyester made a video on this. Ironically, he's actually like the poster child of it because his clip was the one that kind of went viral of it. Someone used his example. Poor Polly caught in the crossfire. But I think it's quite easy to understand why people are immediately going to have such a strong reaction. If we're literally balancing a killer around the fact that a streamer might not be looking at their screen because they're reading Twitch chat, then no, that's a crazy, crazy take and crazy direction to decide to go into and to nerf a killer for that reason. And yeah, I mean, obviously a huge, huge, huge reason for there to be a lot of discourse. Now, when I'm streaming, I look over at chat all the time instead of watching the game. Sometimes I end up getting hit, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm able to actually pay attention between two of the things. But this is the equivalent of saying if I'm reading chat and a Ghostface or a Myers walks up upon me, then, you know, it's fair to say, hey, you know, he was looking at chat, so let's nerf them in XYZ. Same with if Hunter throws a cross-map hatchet or whatever the case may be. If I step into a bear trap and I was reading chat and we want glowing traps now, you know, obviously there's going to be a ton of outrage behind that. Now, besides that, and besides being a streamer and looking at my chat, there's obviously, I think, a bigger gameplay concern surrounding the Judgment, because the Judgment is already a killer that, in my opinion, has a pretty noticeable limitation during the PTP. At close range, her power is super difficult to use efficiently unless you're really good. You have to turn around and flick. It requires a lot of setup and positioning, and you got to get pretty good with the power. Obviously, we haven't had a lot of time to play with her, but it was quite difficult. And I think that was pretty obvious. Now, the trade-off was that, okay, you could probably use her power at a further distance. And that's what I did in the PTB, and I had some decent success with that. But now, with these changes, you're going to struggle even more because survivors are going to know they're being targeted. So the problem is now if you're making the long range part of the power easier to react to, I sort of wonder exactly where the killer strength is supposed to be. If close range is what we're supposed to do, then we can't really do that. And if it's supposed to be long range and it's easier to avoid, we can't really do that. So we're weakening both sides of the power. And this then spirals into a lot of different conversations. Now that ranges into an argument that the devs only like to nerf killers and they're survivor-sided, and that's the kind of things that Dead by Daylight needs to be careful when they're saying. Now, here's the deal. Yes, 100%, this is a really, really ridiculous change for that reason, right? And most to all streamers that I've seen had said, it's my fault if I'm not paying attention. Like, this shouldn't be a change. And I think everybody's on the same page with that. You can't pretty much make a change for a niche of the community where there's only, like, let's say 100 to 200 streamers, whereas there's 100,000 players playing the game. It makes no sense to make a change like that. So saying that constructively, I think, is quite fair. I think it's reasonable for people to be upset with this, but again, this is how a lot of the arguments start within the forums or within balance talks, Reddits, YouTube videos, whatever the case may be, and narratives are formed. Now, saying it constructively is one thing, and that's what a lot of streamers went ahead and did, but then there's the opposite of that, and this is where I think the community needs to learn. There was a lot of backlash. There were calling for people's jobs. There were so much hate that was spewed, but it's sad that it's kind of expected to happen all the time. This is something that we see over and over and over within the DBD community. It's just creating such a hostile environment for the devs to come in to be this open and this transparent with people. They are saying really mean and nasty things. Again, there's one thing to be constructive about it, which I think a lot of folks are doing, and then there's the other side where people are just being downright nasty, and there's no space for that. Now, there's two sides to every argument. As I mentioned, we need to talk a little bit about the developer side of things as well. Behavior also has to understand the environment that they're kind of communicating in. It doesn't really matter whether it's the huge anniversary broadcast or just, in this example, a smaller Discord live stream. Anything that you say about Dead by Daylight can and probably will get clipped, posted on Twitter without context, posted on Reddit, turned into a YouTube video, and discussed by thousands of people who didn't watch the original stream. That means the wording of these explanations means a lot more than just a feel like in the moment kind of sentence. And I get it, like, it's not as easy as I just mentioned to pop on. I don't personally believe somebody sat in the meeting and said, we're gonna nerf the Judgment because streamers are looking at Twitch chat. That's something that I really don't think was the reason. Sure, it could have been one of the reasons, but it's not the reason. That was likely just an example to use as a broader problem. but because that was the example that people heard, that made the headline. My good friend Linksy also tweeted and said that she knows for a fact that this was given by feedback from people that were playtesting, meaning it's not necessarily this sole reason. If internal playtesters were consistently saying, I'm getting hit by this power and I don't understand where it's coming from, they can say that, you know? They don't have to say it's because of the streamers. If data showed that maybe newer players are getting hit disproportionately more than experienced players, we can say that as well. If survivors were having trouble understanding the information they were supposed to read in order to react, they can explain that. I think all of these reasons came into consideration, and unfortunately, the reason that came out was the streamer one. Those explanations don't automatically mean I would agree with the balance decision or not, but at least now we have some actual gameplay conversation. Instead, we don't have that at all. So wrapping it all up here, what I'm trying to say is that the devs need to be very, very picky with the words that they're saying, because this isn't the first time something like this has happened, and I'm sure it won't be the last, but things like this get blown out of proportion very quickly. And when that's kind of the reason that we're given, rather than it was for all of these other reasons, and that's the one that makes a headline, of course people are going to be upset, because why would you make a change like that? I don't agree with the change like that, especially if that was the reason why. Being a streamer and being a content creator, don't balance it around me. Of course, that's going to spark so much outrage with people saying, why are we balancing around streamers? Why are we nerfing killers? Why are we buffing survivors? Why are we making a killer that's already weak more weak? Why are we completely butchering the chapter that's supposed to be a community chapter? Moral of the story, the community needs to be more constructive when they're giving their criticism. It's completely fair. It's completely justifiable. Just do it in the right way, in the right outlet. The devs need to be extremely careful about what they're saying and how they're saying it. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think that the visual warning is actually necessary? Do you think that the change itself might be fine the way if it was just explained properly? Do you think behavior is overcorrecting based on early feedback? Or do you think people are just making this into something much bigger than it needs to be? Remember, at the end of the day, your opinion is what matters the most. You guys know where I stand. I think this is a pretty bad change. I don't agree with it. And if that truly is a reason why they're changing it, which I don't think that is, I still think it's a bad change. An even worse change if that was a major reason that played into that factor. But as always, I'm the king. I tip my crown to you guys, and we'll see you in the fog.